I never told my husband that the apartment we live in is mine, and how right I was, because a month after the wedding, he and his mom decided to throw me out. But listen, sometimes the best decisions you make are the ones that feel completely wrong at the time. I'm Sarah, 28 years old, and this story is about how one little white lie ended up saving my entire future. But I'm getting ahead of myself here. So there I was, teaching third grade in Chicago, living in this incredible place in Lincoln Park that honestly looked like something out of a magazine. You know those apartments with the exposed brick walls and those massive windows that make you feel like you're living in a movie? Yeah, that was mine. 1,200 square feet of pure perfection, worth somewhere around 400 grand. Here's the kicker though, I didn't buy it. My grandmother Eleanor passed away 3 years ago and left it to me in her will. Can you imagine? 25 years old, and suddenly owning property that most people twice my age couldn't afford. Growing up in a cramped little house in Rockford, this felt like winning the lottery. But I made this decision early on. Nobody needed to know I owned the place. When people asked, I'd just say I had this sweet deal renting from a family friend. Simple, believable, and it kept all the weirdness at bay. You'd be amazed how differently people treat you when they think you have real money. Suddenly, everyone's your best buddy, or they start making these passive-aggressive comments about how nice it must be to have things handed to you. Then Jake walked into my life. Literally walked right into me at that little cafe on Halstead, spilled my latte all over my lesson plans. He was this gorgeous construction guy, 30 years old, with these incredible green eyes and hands that looked like they actually built things. When he offered to buy me another coffee and help clean up my papers, something just clicked. We talked for 3 hours that day. He told me about working double shifts to save up for his own place, about his dreams of maybe starting his own contracting business someday. There was something so refreshingly honest about his struggles, so different from the usual guys I'd dated who were all talk and no substance. 6 months later, he proposed at Navy Pier during the fireworks show, and I said yes before he even finished asking. Then I met his mother, Linda, and everything started to get complicated. The wedding happened in Milwaukee at this tiny Presbyterian church where Jake's family had been going forever. Linda, his 52-year-old mother, basically took over the entire planning process. She'd been raising Jake alone since his father bailed when he was in middle school, and let me tell you, she had some serious control issues disguised as helpfulness. Every conversation started with, "Don't you think it would be better if," and ended with me agreeing to something I didn't actually want. The flowers, the music, even the menu, it all became what Linda thought Jake would prefer. I was so caught up in wedding excitement and frankly exhausted from teaching that I just went along with it. Huge red flag I completely missed. After our honeymoon in Door County, Jake moved his stuff into my place. Watching him carry those boxes up the stairs, talking about our new adventure and our home, I felt this weird mixture of happiness and guilt. Every time he mentioned how we'd split utilities or talked about what we could afford for furniture, that knot in my stomach got a little tighter. But we were married now, right? His problems were my problems. My space was his space. That's how marriage works. Except Jake started acting like he was the landlord almost immediately. He wanted to hang his massive sports memorabilia collection on walls I'd specifically asked him to leave alone. He rearranged my living room furniture without asking, saying it needed better traffic flow for when his buddies came over for games. When I tried to discuss it, he'd get this frustrated look like I was being unreasonable about our space. And Linda, oh my God, Linda started treating my apartment like her second home. She'd show up unannounced with groceries I didn't ask for, criticizing everything from my cleaning supplies to the way I organized my closets. Jake needs more protein in his diet, she'd say, restocking my refrigerator. This apartment could use some actual family photos, she'd add, bringing over pictures of Jake's childhood to display on my mantel. I kept telling myself this was normal new marriage stuff, growing pains, learning to blend two lives together, his mom getting used to sharing her son. I made excuses for everything because I was desperately in love with who I thought Jake was. Linda's helpful visits turned into full-scale invasions. Jake had given her a spare key for emergencies, but she used it like she paid rent there. I'd come home from parent conferences to find her deep cleaning my bathroom or reorganizing my kitchen cabinets according to some system that made no sense to me. When I complained to Jake, he'd just give me this tired look and say, "She's just trying to help us get organized, Sarah. Cut her some slack." Slack? This woman was systematically taking over my life. The real damage happened during their private mother-son conferences. They'd disappear into the bedroom for these intense, whispered conversations, while I sat in my own living room feeling like an outsider. I'd catch bits and pieces through the door. "Something doesn't add up about Sarah's finances, honey. Have you noticed how secretive she is about money? Good wives don't hide things from their husbands." Jake started changing after these conversations. The sweet, attentive man I'd married became suspicious and accusatory. He'd question every purchase I made, every dollar I spent. "How exactly can you afford those new books for your classroom? Where'd you get money for that haircut?" Like I was running some kind of elaborate scam. My own apartment became this constant source of tension. Linda would move my things around, I'd put them back, she'd move them again the next day. She started bringing decorations from Jake's old bedroom, saying things like, "This will help Jake feel more settled in his place." Not our place, his place. The breaking point came when I caught her going through my personal mail, not just organizing it, actually opening envelopes and reading through my bank statements like she was conducting some kind of audit. "I was just trying to help you two budget better," she said when I confronted her, not even looking embarrassed. "Jake mentioned you might need assistance managing your expenses." That's when it hit me. This wasn't random nosiness. Linda was building a case against me, collecting evidence of what she saw as financial deception. And she was using my own husband as her informant, turning every conversation they had into an interrogation about my spending habits and lifestyle. I started working late just to avoid coming home to find them plotting in my living room, but I had no idea how far they were prepared to go. It all came crashing down on a Thursday evening in late October, exactly 32 days after our wedding. I'd just finished grading spelling tests and came home around 8, expecting to find Jake watching TV or maybe working on one of his construction projects. Instead, I walked into what looked like an intervention. Jake and Linda were sitting at my dining table with papers spread out between them, looking like they were about to deliver some kind of verdict. "We need to have a serious conversation," Jake announced without even saying hello. His tone was cold, businesslike, nothing like the man who used to text me love notes during lunch breaks. Linda had this triumphant expression, like she'd been waiting months for this exact moment. "Please sit down, Sarah," she said, pointing to the chair across from them like I was about to be interviewed for a job in my own home. "What's all this about?" I asked, but my heart was already racing. Every instinct I had was screaming that something terrible was happening. Jake straightened up and pushed a manila folder toward me. "We've been having some serious discussions about this living arrangement, and we've come to a conclusion." "What kind of conclusion?" I sat down carefully, my hands starting to shake. Linda leaned forward with fake concern plastered across her face. "Sarah, sweetheart, we know you've been struggling financially. Living in a place like this on a teacher's salary? It's just not sustainable. We think," Jake continued, gaining confidence like he'd rehearsed this speech, "that you moved us in here, hoping I'd take over the rent payments, but that's not going to happen." I felt like someone had punched me in the stomach. "Take over the rent? Jake, we're married. This is our home." "That's exactly the problem," Linda interrupted. "Married couples need to be honest with each other about money, and you've been hiding your financial problems from day one." Jake nodded along like a puppet. "You're obviously drowning in debt, probably maxed out credit cards, and now you expect me to bail you out. I'm not going to let you destroy my credit score too." Linda pulled out a stack of printed apartment listings. "So we found you some more realistic options. Nice little places in neighborhoods that actually match your income level. You need to be out by November 1st, Jake said, his voice getting stronger. I'll handle the lease transfer. It's time we both face reality about our financial situations. I stared at them in complete shock. They had researched apartments for me, planned my entire future, made decisions about my life without including me in any of it. And the worst part? Jake genuinely believed he was being generous. I must have sat there for 5 full minutes, just processing what had just happened. Jake kept shifting in his chair, avoiding eye contact like he was already feeling guilty but couldn't back down now. Linda was practically vibrating with satisfaction, checking her watch like she had somewhere important to be after destroying my marriage. Something inside me just snapped. Maybe it was watching Linda eye my grandmother's antique lamp, like she was already planning where to put it in Jake's apartment. Maybe it was the way my own husband couldn't look at me while he was essentially making me homeless. Or maybe I just got tired of being treated like a criminal in the place where I used to help my grandmother bake cookies every Christmas. I stood up without saying a word and walked to my bedroom. They probably thought I was going to pack a bag or have a breakdown. Instead, I went straight to my closet and pulled down the metal document box I kept on the highest shelf, the one with all my important paperwork. When I came back, they were whispering to each other, probably congratulating themselves on how smoothly this was going. Linda looked up first, and her smug expression faltered when she saw the official documents in my hands. "You want to talk about financial honesty?" I said, surprised at how calm my voice sounded. "Let's have that conversation." I dropped the property deed right on top of Jake's apartment listings. The deed with my full name printed in bold letters. The deed showing I'd owned this entire apartment for over 3 years. Jake's face went gray. "What? Where did you get this?" Linda snatched the document, her eyes scanning it frantically like she could make it disappear through sheer willpower. "This is impossible. This can't be legitimate." I started pulling out more papers, property tax records, homeowners' insurance policies, bank statements showing the inheritance transfer from my grandmother's estate. I spread them across the table like I was laying out evidence in a courtroom. "I've owned this apartment since I was 25. I said. "My grandmother Eleanor left it to me when she died. I've been paying all the expenses, property taxes, insurance, maintenance fees, everything, for 3 years." Jake was staring at the documents like they were written in hieroglyphics. "But you told me you were renting." "I told you I had a family arrangement to live here," which was completely true. My family, my grandmother, my inheritance. Linda's triumphant expression had completely disappeared. "But why would you hide something like this from your own husband?" I looked at both of them, really looked at them, and suddenly everything made perfect sense. Because I wanted to see who Jake really was when he thought he had power over me. And congratulations, now I know exactly who I married. The silence that followed was absolutely deafening. Jake kept picking up documents, scanning them, putting them down, then picking them up again like he was trying to solve some impossible puzzle. Linda had gone completely speechless for the first time since I'd known her, which honestly might have been the most shocking part of this entire evening. "Let me make sure I understand what just happened here," I said, walking around the table so I could face them both. "You two spent weeks secretly planning to evict me from my own home because you decided I was financially irresponsible. You researched apartments, made moving timelines, planned my entire future, and never once considered actually talking to me about my actual situation." Jake finally managed to speak. "Sarah, I didn't know. If you had just been honest from the beginning." "Honest about what? About having money? So you could treat me like an ATM? So your mother could move in here permanently and redecorate according to her taste?" Linda jumped up from her chair. "That's not fair. We were genuinely concerned about your welfare." "You were concerned about control," I said, feeling this incredible surge of clarity. "Both of you. And the second you thought you had leverage over me, you showed me your true colors." I walked over and opened the front door. "I want you both out. right now. Jake started to panic. Sarah, wait. We're married. We can fix this. I made a mistake, but marriages work through mistakes. The mistake was mine, I replied. I married someone who could plan to make me homeless and sleep peacefully at night. Linda grabbed her purse, but couldn't resist one final attack. You're destroying your marriage out of spite, Sarah. Jake loves you, and you're throwing it all away because of your pride. I'm protecting myself from people who tried to throw me away first. They left that night, and Jake moved in with his mother the next day. The divorce papers arrived 2 weeks later. I heard through a mutual friend that Linda tried to convince Jake to fight for half the apartment's value, claiming I'd committed fraud by not disclosing my assets. My lawyer laughed so hard at that she nearly choked on her coffee. Apparently, keeping your financial information private isn't illegal, but conspiracy to commit housing fraud definitely is. I'm still here in my beautiful apartment, the one my grandmother left me with so much love and wisdom. I've completely redecorated, replacing every single thing that Jake and Linda touched. Mrs. Peterson from apartment 4B, who overheard the entire confrontation through our shared wall, brings me homemade soup sometimes and tells me I'm the smartest woman in the building. And honestly, I think she's absolutely right. That little secret I kept ended up protecting me from losing everything to people who never deserved my trust in the first place.